Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And for those who are watching us on different time zones, good morning or good evening, wherever you may be. And for those who are first times in this platform or saw me for the first time, my name is Marilyn. I'm the founder and CEO of Customized Training Solutions Private Limited or CTS. And we brand ourselves as the Asia's most trusted solutions partner, customized solutions partner, and we create programs that adds value and impact for leaders to stay relevant, adapt to the next normal, and ensure performance of a hybrid team. And our mission is to be able to inspire sustainable transformation by empowering leaders through customized solutions that drive outcomes and impact. We have served over 6,500 leaders from over 30 countries in different industries, including Petronas, Sony Mobile, Ayala Group, Meralco, Aboitiz Power, Manila Hotel, Brunei Shell, to name a few. And what makes us different is that we are sharp, and that actually stands for an acronym S for Service Excellence, Holistic Programming, Adept Experts, Reliable Partner, and Passionate with what I do. And today it's my great pleasure to introduce my my leader or my partner for today, Duncan. Duncan Williamson combines his extensive academic training experience with significant manufacturing and commercial work, in addition to working as a teacher and trainer. Duncan has experience of working in wide variety of setting, ranging from working as a management accountant in process industries in the UK to product consulting, cost consulting in several industries in Eastern Europe and the oil and gas industry in the Middle East. Duncan has worked in and around a number of oil and gas based companies over recent years, and he has published books, articles, case studies on relevant topics. Without so much further ado, I'd like to invite Duncan. Hi, Duncan.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for asking. And before we proceed, I have like very interesting questions for you. And our goal for today is actually to share with them the importance of business data analytics, right? But before I proceed to my question, this is actually a milestone for us in customized training solutions. And I'd like to share with them this particular video from our let me just share that video file from our sponsor. Yes, we already have a sponsor for this particular event, and that's Babylon 2K. And let me just see how I can share. Okay. Okay, that's the video. And it's interesting because I've seen that live while they were testing this. They're actually launching it, and it's just nice because we're talking about business data analytics, and one of the things that we would like to share with our audience as well is the use of AI in doing so, right? So this is gonna be interesting, and I'm glad that the video and my sponsor is relevant for them, especially for those who actually wanted to start their business or are doing business in the Philippines. So let's get started. My first question, since we're actually talking about business success on data analytics, what would you say would be the metrics or key metrics should everyone or should businesses track to drive growth in their business?
You know there are millions, literally millions. If you look at the kind of companies that we interact with, for example, we've worked a lot with Ayala
Mhm,
in, um, in Manila, and a
mhm,
company like that, multinational, multifaceted, really big company, and they have every floor on their office that has, I don't know, 1,000 numbers a day to deal with, 1,000 different values to deal with, and how many floors in that building in the center of Manila? It's massive. Which ones are the most appropriate? Well, who are you? If you're from HR, then
Mm-hmm.
you've got to concentrate on HR. If you're from finance, you're into everything. If you're an engineer, you've got the idea. They all have their own metrics, and
Like,
the ones that they are managing, the ones that they should be following, are the
mhm,
ones that are most important to them.
mhm. So you were saying that every department would have metrics, as you were saying, their own metrics to measure, and those are the datas that are important to them, right? And I remember in an earlier like conversation that we have as well prior to this session, of course, we actually talk about like some important datas like what you've mentioned around sales, customers, which are very important data that we also need to protect. And so why do you stress the analysis of this data, sales, customers data, in our previous conversation in the data analytics?
Can I just divert you a little bit before I answer that? Uh,
Sure.
if you have any interest in aeroplanes and
Mm-hmm.
airlines, you might know that for the bigger airplanes, I mean, I don't know the smaller ones, but take Singapore Airlines, Malaysian Airlines, Thai Airways, Emirates, British Airways. They have these huge 100, 150, $200 million engines or whatever they are, really expensive bits of equipment. And
Mm-hmm.
every time they fly, each of those engines is monitored by whichever GE, Rolls Royce, whoever it is,
Mm-hmm.
every second of every flight. And they're generating terabytes of data for every flight. And that's only the engines on the aeroplane. Now, the pilot sits in the front, and he has a big bank of screens. And what's he watching? Weather, oil, engines, himself, and then whatever else you need to run an aeroplane. All of these bits of metrics are all channeled onto that one piece of equipment that's flying from A to B.
Mm-hmm.
So again, different people are doing different things with that data.
Mm-hmm.
Why is sales, for example? Because it's the one that many people focus on.
Mm-hmm.
It isn't necessarily the most important one, but it's the one that people know, and it's relatively easy in the sense that here you are. Before we began, I was messing with one of my power banks because it flew and landed on the floor with a bit of a crash. But imagine you're selling items of equipment like this. Then you're interested in the sales of this model, which is a
Mm-hmm.
10,000 milliampere, and down there is a 20,000 milliampere. And so I'm interested in sales of that model, and then any other equipment that I've got. Because sales are the lifeblood of a business. They generate the cash, they generate the credit uh, for everything that you do. Everything revolves around there. Because
Mm-hmm.
generally we see that sales are we call it the principal budget factor or the
Mm-hmm.
key limiting factor of just about any organization, a
Mm-hmm.
commercial organization, I mean. So we focus on that because everyone understands sales
Mm-hmm.
and it's relatively easy to monitor the sales. Forecast is a different thing, of course. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but as I mentioned earlier, there's in a large, very large organization, there's
Mm-hmm.
millions of bits of data. And with things like an aeroplane engine, there's terabytes of data every
Mm-hmm.
hour. So it's a huge business.
Exactly, exactly. And again, like it's good to know that you were saying that, despite that sales and customers are like some of the common data that we look into, mainly because this actually shows us in terms of like how much money or cash do we generate out of the business, what are the credits, and how do you do revolve around there, and generally this is actually the record that most businesses actually look into, right?
Yes.
But again, like you were saying earlier with the example on the aircraft or airline, airplane that you were saying earlier, they have like different metrics that they should mind or they measure, right? And again, that what makes data analytics important, because again, depending on which department we are, what's our KPI, and what ROI we're looking forward to, accomplish, there are different metrics and data that we have to measure based on the operations or the role that we play in the organization, which of course will definitely have like some sort of impact as well, right, in the businesses that we are in, right? So what would you say would be the strategies that you can implement to ensure, like, because when it comes to data, there's a lot of factors as well. Like I've seen your program where it actually includes different facets of data analytics, from data quality to data storage to data management and all. And what's interesting is because this one actually like got me interested, because I'm also organizing something around cybersecurity, and definitely we can't get away with security, right? So what strategies can you implement to ensure data quality and security?
Well, take as a starting point a
Mm-hmm.
Rolls-Royce engine piloting this 777, Boeing 777 through the skies.
Mm-hmm.
And then consider this. If you went to the Fortune 500, the
Mm-hmm.
Fortune 1000, now, the latest version, you would see sales for Walmart,
Mm-hmm.
and it says $650 billion,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Amazon, $600 billion. And it's a fascinating number because it's so big, but it's absolutely meaningless when you think about it. Why? Because how did they get from the very first seconds of January the 1st every year, let's assume that's where their financial year starts,
Mm-hmm.
zero, they haven't sold anything, no income, and then 12 months later, midnight on the 31st December, 650 billion. And you say, oh, that's good. And then the Wall Street reacts to that and they puts the share price up 5% because that's a good number. But what goes into 650 billion, you really cannot imagine. It's a fascinating thing. And it takes you back to your question then. What about strategy then? How
Mm-hmm.
do you look at and manage that? And just before I came here, I was reading something about risk, about the size of Amazon's AWS
Mm-hmm.
infrastructure, Amazon Web Services. So I wanted to know how big, how many terabytes, how many petabytes, and so on have they got? And they said, no one knows. Well, fine, it's a trade secret, but it's massive. It really is huge. Then that took me to their 10K form, which is their annual report sent to the SEC, and
Mm-hmm.
they had 10 whole A4 pages on risk, the risks that Amazon faces. You think about anything that could have a risk attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Sales is obviously one, foreign exchange is another one, their own systems is something else, and the way it goes. They even admit that their own drive for growth, which has been phenomenal. It's averaged about 22, 23% a year compound for 30 years. That's an astonishing record. And so the strategy is, how have they done that? How do they do that? And I don't know because I've never run a company like Amazon, and not many of us have. But yet, here are the key ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You must, even with Amazon, Jeff Bezos, just before he left Amazon, he said, when somebody asked him, what do you think about Amazon's coming quarter and blah, blah, blah? He said,
Mm-hmm.
I've no idea because I'm working on our timeline 3 years ahead. So whatever is happening now is of no interest to me because I'm planning for the future. So
Mm-hmm.
he's got some idea. They've got some goals, some part of their strategy of what they're looking for and how they're trying to manage it. Uh, and that leads you on to things like systems. If they don't have a system, the whole thing will collapse.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite obvious, really. Uh, we may talk about data storage and data management a little bit later. Well, they've got their AWS system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I read some of the numbers about how many cores they've got, and I've no idea what that means, but it's a large number.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Somebody said I don't know, a few years ago, they had 4 million servers in their system. And again, I don't know what that really means in terms of
Mm-hmm.
functionality and so on, but it's big. Now, not
True.
since it's the second or third biggest company in the world by sales, uh, we're not going to have many people from those companies in the kind of sessions that we run. But scale that down, and everybody in the room who's from a commercial organization will have questions to ask about and questions to answer about sales and how they manage them. And are they, here's another key idea, and are they their principal budget key limiting factor? Because they
Mm-hmm.
might not be.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that example on AWS. And before I proceed to the next question, I just want to acknowledge Michael. Hi, Michael. For thank you for joining us, as well as Marian Labonete. Hello and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those who are actually joining us live, even if we don't see you, please feel free to share your comment, your questions, so that we can do our best to actually answer that question. And my summary from what you've shared and what I get from what you've shared is really some of the strategies are basically, of course, having the system in place, leveraging on technology, managing the risk, and of course, planning ahead. You've mentioned that Jeff Bezos actually like does his planning at least 3 years ahead or so. And like from what I've learned with other discussions I have, like there always has to be like this short term, long term, and midterm like planning that has to go on to ensure like that everything will be working quite well, right? um and oh, hi Apollo, thank you for joining us. And yes, Team Excel, we should have the next interview. We're actually in the mentorship program of Francis Kong, and we're actually working on our first project. Hopefully, we get more details soon from Miriam and UST as well, and maybe we can actually schedule like some sort of um, discussion as well, similar to this, on like how we can actually help more people in terms of making choices, because every choice that we make will actually create a ripple effect in our future, right? And that's the same for data analytics. Good afternoon from Isabel Santos. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And so, again, I really appreciate, I hope I have actually summarized your answers in terms of the strategy in implementing data quality and security. And my next question then, Duncan, is what's the role of big data, predictive analytics, AI, and machine learning? Earlier, I've shared the video from Babylon 2K. Um, and they've been actually using AI as well as part of the the systems for accountants and for businesses as well. So, what's actually the role of all these big data, predictive analytics, AI, and machine learning when it comes to data analytics?
You know, the most important thing really is big data, and it's a conundrum really, where many of the organisations I've worked with over the last 20 years or so as a trainer,
Mm-hmm.
rather than as a teacher, because that's a different environment. Uh, Dealing with some of the Middle East largest companies, and they describe their infrastructure, their
Mm-hmm.
all of their servers and so on, and their accounting and organizational systems. as
Mhm.
much as $1 billion on
Mhm.
their hardware and software to manage their data. And because there's a lot of data, they're big companies, they've got massive sales, and they're strategically important businesses too. So
Mhm.
you might expect they would spend so much.
Mhm.
Then you say to yourself, well, why is the teacher in a room showing them how to use Excel? What's the point? How do you go from $1 billion to 50 quid, which is where we've gone? And the answer is that really is sometimes so much data. Rolls Royce can manage their terabyte per flight, per hour,
Mhm.
whatever it is. But in terms of uh, cost accountants, management accountants, HR people managing their data for their organization or their
Mhm.
part of the organization, they really do take it from their massive database and bring it down to Excel level. And there isn't anything wrong with it because they can do some really clever things more and more now with Excel. And dashboarding is a good one.
Mhm.
Power BI is another good one, especially for dashboarding and other types of analysis. So there we are. Uh, it's not all $650 billion and that's it. It's a big problem. We
Mhm.
break it down. Now that's
Mhm.
not that's one view of big data. It's not all like that, but the
Mhm.
people I deal with, they do that.
Mhm. So if I understand it correctly, what you're trying to say is that um the most important among those that I've made mention in my question, it's the big data that is most important when it comes to business data analytics, and mainly because there's like so much data as you've mentioned, especially in an organization where they really like operate in different countries, in different businesses, right? Like what you also mentioned in your earlier example. And again, it's really so much more about how do we bring this massive data into use, right? How do we break it down? Like you mentioned you were using in the trainings that we run, you would normally use Excel as one of your, I would say, favorite tool, other than Power BI, right? And the rest of the um rest of the systems or softwares that you use in order to break it down to make sense, right, of the data. Did I get it right?
Yeah, I use.
And
Yeah, go
yeah,
on.
yeah.
I also use R R
R.
Studio,
Mm-hmm.
statistical software. Now, I'm by no means a gee whiz programmer of that, but I use
Mm-hmm.
and I demonstrated to show that there's your massive Oracle database.
Mm-hmm.
Bring your data down, your monthly cost accounting data, do what you
Mm-hmm.
have to do in Excel, and be happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
But every now and again, I say to them, what you really need to do with the data,
Mm-hmm.
especially things like forecasting, is you need something better than Excel.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you know Excel, the forecast sheet, it's based on treble exponential smoothing. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I programmed that in Excel way before the forecast sheet came along.
Mm-hmm.
And for one example, it took me an hour and a half to 2 hours just to program the model. And again, I always tell people you can buy a template from the internet these days for virtually anything, but you'll use it once and then throw it away because templates are a very fragile thing and you're constantly redoing your work. But in terms of things like treble exponential smoothing, uh,
Mm-hmm.
R will do it in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes downloading the data. Whereas if and because you don't need to program the system, it's already built. But if you
Mm-hmm.
want to do your own analysis from scratch with Excel, yeah, there's your morning, all gone.
I know, I know. Actually, those are the common like comments that we have received from the past attendees that we have from the different companies that we served, or we managed to have in our training programs together, right? That doesn't even include those that you've done with other partners that you work with. Before I say my next comment, I just want to acknowledge Michaeline. Hello, thank you for joining us. And again, like, it's very interesting for me, like when you have done this work, you have given them a lot of methodologies, techniques, shortcuts, if I may say, during the or throughout the program. And it's very interesting how, like, they even say that it's actually a dream come true for them to attend this program. And it's interesting, and I think I will make my last comment later after this next question. So my next question is, how can data analytics actually improve your decision making process?
I'm going to sell ourselves now. I look at what people are doing on YouTube. You've got some fabulous people doing fabulous things with Excel, with R, with Python, with everything that you and I know. And even
Mm-hmm.
if we don't do it, we can see it. Doing some fabulous things. But then you'll read Excel horror story. Excel spreadsheet failed and cost the company £10,000, $100 million, all of which is true.
Mm-hmm.
But why did they make a mistake? They blame Excel, and the reality is it's very rarely Excel's fault.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show me exactly why Excel caused that problem
Mm-hmm.
to blame Excel. And the bit I'm coming to now is why they need you and me, Marilyn, is
Mm-hmm.
because they need more training for
Mm-hmm.
two reasons. Number one, the vast majority of people, including me, are self-taught in Excel. The vast majority of people, and even the people I've met who did Excel as part of their accounting, mathematics, statistics degree at university, have huge gaps in their knowledge. And I saw my missus doing her undergraduate work here in Thailand,
Mm-hmm.
and well, talk about gaps in knowledge. The
Mm-hmm.
trainer there, he taught what he liked, he taught what he knew, what he didn't know, he didn't teach. And he
Mm-hmm.
didn't even set it as a homework. So big gaps in their knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And then, especially now, the last 5 years, Excel is developing at such a pace that
Mm-hmm.
there are so many new things that it takes people like me, if I can say it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I make it my job to keep up to date as much as I can, and so
Mm-hmm.
I know about dynamic array functions, and I know about let and lambda and so on, and here we are ready to share. Whereas people who are working 30, 40, 50 hours a week don't have time to catch up on all these things. And the basic building blocks of Excel do what they want,
Mm-hmm.
what they think they want. But if I can just mention AI,
Mm-hmm.
uh, AI is already built into Excel
Mm-hmm.
and it's already built into Power BI, and it's part of our course.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Good examples would be influencers. Key influencers is built into Power BI. Take a
Mm-hmm.
look at it. We don't have time to do that now. Go and see
Mm-hmm.
what that might do, where you just give it your data set and say, can you tell me why we're making such good profit or bad profit? Can you tell me from what I'm giving you, sharing with you now, these 20 variables, which are the key influences on high sales, low sales, high profit, low profit?
Mm-hmm.
And then another one, a fantastic one, is called a decomposition tree. If you know Excel, you know spreadsheets, and you know databases anyway, you've heard of pivot tables. And pivot tables, uh, they start out looking like this, and you swivel things around in 3 dimensions, and you get some very clever answers very easily. No maths involved, no formulae, no programming. Just put it into a table, and it will do it. But the decomposition tree allows you to take the data completely apart.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have, let's say, 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 rows of data, 10 or 12 different variables, you can slide these variables in and out, literally like I'm doing my fingers now. And you can see at a micro level the impact and the influence of one variable on another one. It's
Mm-hmm.
fantastic. That's
Okay.
only in Power BI.
True, true, yeah. So thank you for sharing that with us. And before anything else, I'd like to ask this question. This is actually from Apollo. He said, slightly off topic, how do we avoid data poisoning? Or is it even a big problem, in your opinion, where we get skewed results to provide incorrect analytics? Example, in the states where the truth seems to be manipulated from the time to time to serve certain narratives.
Yeah, did poisoning happen or did someone make the poisoning happen? Uh, you're obviously aware that that's a key problem. Uh, from our point of view, you're right, there is such a thing. I've never heard that phrase before, data poisoning, but it's quite clear what it means. And I've just mentioned Excel horror stories, and there are Excel horror stories, but it's very rarely Excel's fault. Therefore, that's why I said who's doing the poisoning, what's causing the poisoning. And someone who's badly trained is dangerous. Someone who's very well trained to do the poisoning is equally dangerous. And I don't know the answer because there's a million answers to that question, Apollo, and I think you're aware of that. Uh, but how? But let's be a bit more rational about it. How do you prevent the Excel horror stories? The last one I know of was at the general election in the UK last month, and at the end of it all the MPs returned to Parliament and so on and so on. And then they announced that for one constituency, they under-recorded the number of votes for one candidate. XL spreadsheet error. And it wasn't an Excel spreadsheet error. It wasn't. What had happened is someone had failed. They had failed to put a number in the right cell in a file that was properly organized and so on, and therefore the numbers didn't tally. Now, when should they have caught that? Answer: immediately. They didn't. This came out 2 or 3 weeks later. So, train people in your systems. The way to stop data poisoning is to have your systems ready so that at every point it will show you somewhere a zero or a one. Zero, there's an error, something's poisoning the system, or there's a one, carry on, no error. Making sure that those zeros and ones are correct and you don't have a data poisoning error. Apart from what's happening in the States now is they've got their own election and there is a lot of poisoning going on there. Everyone can see it.
Thank you for answering that, Duncan. And I hope, Apollo, that you're satisfied with Duncan's answer. And again, like, whatever you use, whether it's generative AI, Excel, or whatever technology, it's really about the person who use it, the intention, as well as how you actually use it, right? It could be, again, like what you've said, Duncan, whether good or bad, it depends on how you actually make use of this technology, right? And Apollo says thank you as well for your interesting question. And so that's actually the end of the questions. But I actually missed to tell you this, Duncan. In all my interviews, whether it's as technical as what we are discussing right now, to like leadership and cybersecurity, I always ask this question, and it's very interesting as well, to ask this question with you, because my experience when I had the chance to actually observe during your training program, the one that we did together in Manila before, I was always like so amazed with how the people look like while you're doing the training, because of the, the shortcuts that you have been sharing with us. And again, like in my introduction, I made mention as well, like how people said that, your program is a dream come true for them. And obviously, because of the shortcut and the techniques that you've shared with them, you have actually shortened the time that they work on their worksheet, and of course increase the productivity. And it's interesting, whenever you actually, when you did the training where I was observing, these are people who are not just ordinary. They're department heads, uh section heads, managers, division heads, and all those stuff. These are like kind of senior with what they do as an accounting and finance professionals, right? But the reaction in their face, I would say that's really priceless, because while I was looking at them, it's as if like you're a magician who's actually giving them a show. Right? So that's why I always call you as a magician, because like that's how I felt when I saw the reaction of these like leaders, accounting and finance leader, in front of you while you teach them your tricks and your shortcuts. And it's very interesting. So my last question before we end this conversation is that, if you have a magic wand that you can use, what will you do with it?
I think it's a matter of routine. Uh, I don't want to be critical because by naming anyone, because that's not fair, because they're not here to defend themselves. But I watch videos on YouTube like many other people, blah, 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 and they say, today we're going to look at dynamic array functions. Let's dive in. And I think, well, what are you diving into? Where are you diving from? And one of the key things that I say almost every class that I ever have,
Mm-hmm.
I ask the delegates, can you show me your all of your written work, the background? Show me
Mm-hmm.
uh, all of your documentation for the model that you're having a problem with.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little bit older than most people, and when I was trained to be an accountant, we had procedures manuals. And when I got my first job, I had no idea. They don't tell you this at university, but I went to the office and they said, do this, do that, other, take notes, and then you write the procedures manual, which I did, which we did. And so everything that I did, everything everyone did, had fully documented notes, so that
Mm-hmm.
if today I wasn't there on holiday, sick or something, everything's written down. Everybody knew what I was doing and how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
No more.
Hello. Sorry.
I just got chopped
It,
off.
ah,
Oh,
is it? I can hear you.
I'm back.
Yes.
Yeah, it's something in my system. Sorry. Yeah, so I see that, and I ask them, how do you know who, what, where, when, and why? And when you change something, how do you know you've done it correctly? How do you know you didn't miss something? Excel horror
Mhm.
stories again. So the magic wand is for you and me to be given billions of dollars worth of training opportunities to sort this out. That's my
Mhm.
magic wand.
So sort out all the Excel horrors.
Yes, you and me
That's
for billions of dollars. Don't forget that bit.
And at the end of the day, right, it's really so much more of not just, teaching them all um the necessary actions, techniques, shortcuts, but it's really about like avoiding as well, like those dollars that they might lose because of all these Excel horror stories, as you say. So I'm sure, like, with the work we've done this program, like several programs, different programs, from data analytics to financial modeling and finance for leaders. So we have, I'm sure we have, like, based on the comments and feedback of the people that we work with, I'm sure that they are always getting value and a return on investment on whatever they put in, both time and money, when they actually attend your program. And before I end this conversation, I just want to acknowledge Miss Bless. Hi, Bless. Hello, everyone. She said. So, yeah, so that's why they have to really register for our upcoming program on business data analytics, because we have limited seats, and it's soon, very soon, on September 10 to 11 here in Singapore. So if you haven't done so, feel free to register, and we will put in the link as well in the comments later on, if you'd like to save more time, more money from your organizations, and make well use of your data. Because at the end of the day, even if you have a lot of data, if you don't know how to make sense of it towards a right decision in your businesses, it doesn't make sense, right? So, and that's also the reason why Duncan highlighted that the most important of all the four things that I mentioned is around big data and making sense out of those big data. So, is there anything more that you'd like to add before we end this conversation, Duncan?
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention Chat GPT, uh,
Mm-hmm.
or you mentioned it very briefly. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, these days, I have to be very careful. Again, I don't use it all day, every day. Generally, I use ChatGPT as an
Mm-hmm.
encyclopedia. As a
Mm-hmm.
good example, last night one of my kids couldn't sleep very well, so I said, "Let me read you a story then." And I read, I don't know if you know Dr. Seuss, and the story of the Lorax.
Mm-hmm.
It's a convoluted story, but it's got a message. It's a very good story with a message. So I thought, I'm going to ask ChatGPT, out of the blue, how did they summarize the story of the Lorax? He knew, she knew, and gave me a one-page summary, which I thought was pretty good. But here's a very dangerous thing, I think a very dangerous thing with ChatGPT and similar. Uh, People who rely on it, who don't know that they shouldn't rely on it. That's a very dangerous thing. I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you so much for that much needed warning. And again, thank you, and looking forward to be running programs again with you on data analytics and other programs on finance. So, and I really appreciate you taking time to have this conversation with me. And for those who watch us or is watching us live today, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, let's join in this journey to create more opportunities through these several interventions, to create more opportunities to thrive together. And remember that even the richest investors in the world would say that investing in yourself is the best investment you can ever make in your life. So with that, we would like to thank you, everyone. Thank you, Duncan, and those who actually joined and engaged with us. Thank you so much, everyone, and bye for now. See you soon.